guys, welcome back to the Soul Healing series, and this is episode 4. I hope you have been enjoying what I've been bringing out. I've tried to sort of bring in different stories, different people, just to sort of bring a little bit of a dynamic so that you can relate to each and every single story. So today I've got another guest with me and I am super excited. And last time we spoke about body dysmorphic disorder, and we also went in depth a little bit about different types of depression. The series obviously is around mental health, anxiety and depression, so we're going to talk a bit more about anxiety. And I've got a special guest. I've got Anne with me today.
Hi guys.
And she's just going to break down a little bit about anxiety, and she's got a little special story of her own, and I'm actually quite excited to share with you guys. So we're going to go straight into it. Don't forget to share, like the video and enjoy. Thanks. Okay, hi.
Hi.
So introduce yourself, just let people know who you are a little bit and an interesting fact about you.
Well, like Ami said, I'm Anne, and I do a lot of writing and business stuff. And one interesting fact, I like the sun.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to share a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
I've known Anne for quite a long time now, and we've seen you sort of go through a little bit of up and down. So share a little bit about your story, because I know that you've dealt with a little bit of anxiety and some little side effects of like mental health. Like, just break it down in what aspect.
Well, in terms of anxiety, like when I was younger, I used to be an introvert, well, a forced introvert basically, and that means like I suppressed a lot of things that I was going through and I wouldn't talk. So it got to a point where I became really anxious, like when difficulties would come up, like if I had to make a decision, for example, or if I felt like somebody was upset with me, I would just like break down, like I wouldn't know how to deal with it. Like sometimes I would be shaking, sometimes I'd be crying, and I wouldn't know how to like deal with those issues. And it came to the point where, like, you know, even like going out sometimes would be a difficult issue for me, like going to the shops, for example. I remember one time when I was going through like a process of like coming out of anxiety, I had to go to the shop and I literally couldn't even go to buy like the basics. I was just panicking. And for people who don't know how anxiety feels, it's like extreme fear, and like extreme fear of sometimes it's people, sometimes how they're going to respond, or sometimes it's situations, like maybe some people are afraid of heights and stuff like that. It's like that basically.
And what was it that triggered it?
I don't know, probably it's to do with the past, like being afraid of people, like how people's reaction basically, because like how I grew up most of the time, it's like you don't talk, you know. If you talk, then it's basically what people liked, what people wanted to hear, and it's not necessarily how you're feeling. So when it came to the point where you're supposed to talk, like in this country is different, like you have freedom like of speech and stuff like that. So to a certain point, I guess, like, so it's like when you
I'm just laughing because you're talking about in terms of like culture, right?
Culture.
So in certain cultures, like, I don't know, for anyone who's sort of come from maybe like an African background or Jamaican background, in the household, it's quite a common thing. You don't, if you are maybe being told off, or if something happens in the house, you don't generally like answer back, or you know, you don't have your say. And I think for a lot of children, and for a lot of people that I have spoken to as well, is they've grown up with that, and it's actually changed them as a person. So when you come in a country like this, for example, like in the UK, and you see, like, you know, maybe other people like talk back, or you know, have their say, and you see families where they sit down and the parents are like, okay, talk to us, you know, tell us how you feel. That's a bit like weird. It's a bit like, oh my gosh, like we never. That's weird. Like if your mum or dad tells you something, you don't say anything.
No.
And you know, like what Annie's saying, that's obviously installed a bit of anxiety in you.
Yeah. So like when I was going for my counselling, like because I had a friend like I could talk to, and he used to find it weird that I wasn't able to talk. I wouldn't respond sometimes, or if I responded, I'd be crying, and then he would be like what's wrong? Like why are you crying? And I couldn't explain why I would be crying and stuff like that. Yeah. So I found talking difficult.
Yeah, so you know, if you are sort of from that sort of background and you are dealing with anxiety, I think talking is one of the most important things. Like I've shared previously, finding the right outlet. So for me, I journal a lot. So it's just about bringing that out, because I think sometimes when you keep things in, that can just suppress it, and it can just actually it can just keep you in a box, and that can suffocate you, and that can make you feel a bit closed in and claustrophobic, and obviously that can create anxiety as well. Okay, so just going to dig in a little bit more, because like I said before, Anne actually has an extraordinary story. So we're going to talk a little bit about the time when you was in a mental institute, and how that came about, and your time in there, your experience, and obviously now you're out and you're looking well. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, as I was going through like the process of counselling and everything, coming out, obviously like Ami said, you know, when you're going through that, it's like when you begin to talk, things begin to come to the surface. So I remember I was travelling with her actually, and the friend who was giving me counselling at the time, and basically I blanked out. I couldn't remember like what else was going on around me. And that happened for hours and hours on end, and then I found myself like basically in the mental institution. And
did someone take you in?
Yes, a few of my friends took me in, and
this is not funny.
a few of my friends took me in, and when I got in, obviously like they inject you all sorts, and apparently I was like screaming and shouting at the staff, and so for me, the only thing that calmed me down was like seeing my friend, like obviously being a Christian, like, you know, I thought, okay, this person's not with me, but I could see like he's real. And so he was like trying to calm me down, because I was like screaming at the staff. Like I could see the staff who were trying to like keep me quiet and stuff like that, because in the mental institution they restrain you, and so they were trying to restrain me, and I was like not having it. And so after the first day, I managed to escape out of the mental institution. I don't know how, but then eventually the staff, they put me back into the mental hospital again, and after that I left and I went to London. So that was the first time I went into the mental institution, but it was for the young people's one at the time. So yeah.
Okay, so how long was you in there for?
For overnight, the first time.
Oh, okay. So how many times did you get taken in?
2 times. So the second time was when I was now at my parents' house, because at the time I was at uni the first time round. So my parents were like really scared the first time round, and they were like, you can't pray, you can't read your Bible and everything like that. So because that's what they thought was the trigger. And what's it called? So eventually they found out like a lot of the things that I was going through, because my partner at the time, like my husband at the time, found my book, like my first book that I wrote, like a lot of things that I was going through. So they managed to find out, you know, like half of the things that I'd been going through, like from childhood and stuff like that. And so they were scared. So the second time it happened again, I was having like outbursts and stuff.
Yeah.
And this time my parents took me into the mental institution, but this was a mixture of like young people and older people.
Okay.
And this time it was longer. I was there like for a week and 4 days.
Okay.
And basically they were trying to diagnose me, to try and find out like what's the trigger and everything. And they couldn't find anything after me being in there. but the only thing they told me was like, well, you can't go to church, the type of church that you go to, because obviously the atmosphere must be the one triggering you to behave the way you're behaving.
Was that your parents?
No, the doctors.
The doctors.
Yeah, the actual consultants. And I was like, well, I'm a Christian, so you can't really tell me not to go to church, because that's where I found like my help and everything out. So for a while my parents were scared.
Yeah.
Like every time I'll be listening to a Christian music, they'll freak out. Every time I'm going to friends, they would freak out. So it was quite bizarre, really.
Yeah, and that's quite extraordinary in itself, because you're going into a mental institute, trying to get that help. At the same time, you do have your belief and you've got your religion, and it's sort of creating this sort of weird dynamics where you're just there, aren't you? You're just like, okay, I know what I believe, but this is I'm going through this, and I don't really know what's happening with my life. And it must have been scary for you as well.
It was, because it's like what I tell people who have never been into the mental hospital. I'm like, if you're normal, like, and you go to the mental hospital, it's like you might end up being actually mental, because like they bang the doors, the noises, they give you medication and like outbursts and stuff like that. And like when I was there, obviously there are other people with me and who are actual patients. So like I'll talk to them, because I wanted to find out like for myself like how it worked and why they were in there and stuff like that. So I'll speak to some of the people, like, because I'm quite an observant person. And so I'd observe them, and some of the stuff, they'll trigger them off, and then they'll start like acting weird, and they'll start screaming sometimes. But when I talk to them, they're normal. And so I'd ask them questions like, why are you like the way you are, and why are you here? And some of them were like, well, I can hear train sounds. And I'm like, well, we're not anywhere near train stations, so how come you can hear that? And some of them will say, well, I can hear voices, and I'm like, well, there's nobody talking to you, how come you're hearing these things? And I remember the first time I spoke to one of like the patients there, I was just doing some artwork, because they give you like different activities while you're there. And so I was like, excuse me, like, what's your name? Introduce ourselves. And he told me his name. And then all of a sudden I was like, why are you here? And he was like, I died.
Okay, well.
And I was like, what do you mean you died? You're here. So he's like, well, I died. And I was like, so, but why are you here? And he was like, well, I met Jesus. And I was like, okay, but why are you here? And then he was like, well, I told my story to my parents, but they're not Christians, so they put me here. So I began to realize that not everybody in the mental institution are actually mental, but it's not that mental illness is not real, because obviously being a Christian, I don't want to spiritualize things, because it's quite real. People, there are people that actually go through those things, that it's actually real. Like I remember years after like the experience, I went into that episode myself, like Insanity, where like literally you feel, the only way I can explain it is like you feel like you're in a box. Like you can see everybody around you, it's like normal, but it's like your senses are actually like dim. So sometimes you can't smell things around you, and people be like, well, your house smells funny, your house looks dirty, and to you it's like normal. Like, I've cleaned this place, how come you're telling me that this house is dirty? I've cleaned, I can hear you perfectly fine, and is this person actually in this place? Or so I found out that that's how they diagnose people, like with mental health. So they rely on like your hearing, your seeing, your senses basically. That's how.
Sort of just like analysing, you as a person, and I mean that's very profound. Just something that you mentioned earlier, just about the voices. And there's a few people that I've spoken to, and I've had really good feedback as well, that people that's been in touch, just letting me know, you know, just like different effects and things that people go through. And hearing voices, I think, is one of the biggest things. You know, the voice will tell you do this, or you know, I was even hearing a story of someone, the voice was telling them to take off their clothes and, you know, run the street naked. And so I think you know, that's something that definitely to look out for. I mean, it's great to have Anne here to share a story, because personally for me, that level of mental health that's I've not sort of dealt with, but I wanted to sort of bring out, just dig in a little bit more deeper for people that are actually at that stage. And something as well that you said, I think that's very key, is it's not everybody that's in there that's actually got, you know, that level of mental health. I think it's very easy to diagnose someone. And one thing that I have realised is that there's a name for absolutely everything.
There is.
Some long name that you just like fibromyalgia, and you
psychosis,
just psychosis, something.
ADHD, and you know,
it's just like the absolute name for everything. And I think that as a person, one thing that we spoke about in our previous videos, please do watch all of the series, because there's literally something in it for everybody. One thing that we definitely was talking about was, you know, you need to be strong as a person. Like if you don't have anybody to help you, find that help inside. And it's perception as well. Like if, for example, you know that, okay, I don't have this, you know, then you need to find a way. You need to try, you know, your best, you know, connect with people, you know, read books, or just find something. Because I think the worst thing is just to get diagnosed, get thrown into an institute like Anne was, and then just sit there and lie there, and that your life can change in seconds. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm a diagnosed mental health patient, and that's your life, you know, taken like that. Okay, so now you're here, you obviously, that's a part of your life that's gone, and you've overcome it, and I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to be able to sit down with people that's overcome it, because then it just shows that there is hope, and that's the most important thing. You know, if they can do it if Anne can overcome it, if, you know, Fiona can overcome it, if all of these people that have overcome it can, then you can definitely overcome it as well. So now you're here, you've gone through it, you're out of it. Anxiety wise, how did you sort of overcome the anxiety?
Obviously, like overcoming anxiety, I had to learn to talk, to trust people. First of all, like surrounding myself with trustworthy people. And people that I know, like, you know, if I spoke, I wouldn't be in trouble, like, you know, and stuff like that. Learning to trust people.
And you wouldn't be judged as well.
And people wouldn't just jump and judge you and stuff like that. So that's how I've overcome anxiety. Like, it's a day-to-day process, you know, and like the more you talk, the more like those things that are inside of you comes out, and then the more you're free, because it's like, when you suppress things on the inside of you, like that's where your prison is. But when you realize that, okay, I can talk, I do have a voice, and my voice matters, what I have to say matters, that's what brings you into a place of freedom. And also, like what you said, you know, not believing that you're mental, because they came and told me, well, I'm not mental, they can't find anything and wrong with me, but they still wanted to put me into that place, and they still call me up, you know, like when she called me for the interview, like literally a minute later, no word of a lie, like one of the doctors called me, you know, I can see like you need a mental health review, and I was like, well, I'm not mental, so can I decline that review? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. But it's something that you always have to go through it, but you have to understand that you are not mental, because they're only trying to do their job, obviously, as specialists and stuff like that, but it's your freedom really comes from you.
Definitely. And I just want to point out as well, you know, obviously every single person's journey is different. Some people, you know, they might actually feel like or some people might be going through it, and you know they need to have that specialist you know, treatment to go through. And it's about not being afraid and not letting that fear, you know, grips you, and just actually taking those steps. But again, you've just got to remember that, do you know what, you're more than that. You're more than that, you know, mental health issue, or you're more than that anxiety. You know, what I really wanted to say as well is, you know, I just want to thank everyone that's, you know, really been supportive. In terms of the anxiety, something that I've dealt with as well, and it's definitely real. You know, when you go through anxiety, it is a fear factor. It is like you're just closed in, and some people, they're over it, and some people it comes every now and then. You get anxious, you can't breathe sometimes. You know, if you panic, you start crying, you just, you can't breathe.
It's true.
You can't breathe
like
when you're crying. You're just like, my heart, my chest. It is definitely a hard thing to go through. You know, that's something that I'm sort of learning to like deal with. And sometimes for some people it's harder to speak to people. You know, for me it's not the easiest thing to do because it is that lack of trust. But it's about rebuilding that. I mean, do you have any sort of like last words or any sort of tips?
Like, okay, like probably people, because I normally find that a lot of people call me, like who have been in the mental institution, like, they call me and they'll say, well, you know, this has happened, or somebody who knows that I've been in the mental hospital, they'll be like, oh, this person who's been in the mental institution have done this and this and this. And like what I'd say, if you've got like maybe friends or family members who are in the mental institution, or they're out of it but they have those episodes, like reoccurring episodes, the worst thing you can do is tell them about police. You know, because that scares them, because a lot of like when we see people going missing, for example, from the mental institution, it's police that draws them back. So when they're going into that episode and you tell them about police, it scares them. So the worst thing, like I would say, for example, if you're a carer or a friend, don't tell them about police. And you know, just knowing how to talk to them, because they do understand you. It's not like they're out of it, they don't understand you. Sometimes yes, they don't, but try not to scare them, and try to just talk to them normal, and to seek that help, and just that voice of reasoning, basically.
That's a really good tip. You know, for if you are a family member, a friend, a carer, and you know you do know someone that's going through it. Again, like Anne said, the police is something that's quite frightening. So just it's about altering your approach and knowing how to approach. And again, study it, whatever it is that's causing the mental health. Learn about it so that you know how to cater to that person. Well, that's it. That's the end of the interview. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sitting down here and sharing your story. Sometimes it's not easy to share the story, but one thing that I have realised is that the more we share, the more we talk about it, the more exposed it's going to get, and the less power it's going to have over our mind, bodies and souls. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something from it. Please do, you know, message me, tweet me, get in contact with me, let me know your story. I'd love to share that with all of our viewers. Thanks guys, see you next time.